Hi, and happy December 27th. My name is Mary Coughlin, and I'm the president and founder of Caring Essentials Collaborative. And today is the second day of Christmas, article review number 2. Today's article looks at the father's lived experience in the neonatal intensive care unit. It was a really nice paper, a systematic review of qualitative studies done by Provenzi and Santoro. It was published in 2015 in the Journal of Clinical Nursing. I'll provide you with a written annotation of this article through my blog site. I'll share the link, on my Facebook page. But this was a really excellent paper that looked at some qualitative studies specifically focused on the paternal experience during the neonatal intensive care unit. They elected to focus on qualitative studies because these guys were really interested in understanding the human experience of these individuals, of these fathers, during the newborn intensive care stay. And what they identified was a series of themes in the studies that they reviewed. There was a total of, let me just double check, 14 selected studies that met their criteria. And the themes that they identified included the idea of an emotional roller coaster, and these themes were extracted from the interview and the feedback that they received from the fathers. So the emotional roller coaster experience, the paternal needs, which we know from other studies is different than the maternal needs of the parent that's experiencing newborn intensive care unit. They also extracted a theme around coping strategies specific to fathers, self-representation. How well did they identify, or how long did it take them to identify with their paternal or their father role? And they also talked about caregiving engagement. And the thing that I found so fascinating about this study is, for sure there are some parallels with the maternal lived experience, but I think it's important for us as neonatal clinicians to really honor the unique experience of the father. And oftentimes, I know we have a lot of competing priorities and we may not appreciate that some of their behaviors or some of their coping strategies might actually be interfering with their ability to process and adapt to this new reality, this crisis that they're living, the life-threatening situation that their infant is in, plus or minus the condition of the mother. And in fact, in reviewing these themes, fathers expressed extreme angst when the mother was also critically ill and removed from the ability to care and interact with the infant on a more regular basis. The majority of the fathers used their work as a coping strategy, and which was kind of identified as a double-edged sword because they would, go to work a lot, really immerse themselves in the work so they could really hide from their emotional experience because they really didn't know how to process it, and there were limited resources made available to them. I'm not saying that they weren't out there, but I think these individuals were in crisis mode, and it's really difficult sometimes to identify the needs that you have when you're in that kind of a crisis situation. The emotional roller coaster they expressed was first, their focus was on their partner and the recovery of their partner. So, how ill was the mother? And once they were reassured that the mother was going to be well and was going to survive the situation, then their focus did turn towards the child and the infant. Many of the fathers expressed relief when the mother was able to take on a lot of those caregiving and parenting activities with the infant, because many of the fathers had verbalized concern about their physicality. One gentleman expressed how his hands were very large and clunky, and because of that, his self-representation, he felt that he could possibly harm his child. A lot of these gentlemen didn't express these concerns to the day-to-day clinicians that they were interfacing with. This information was really extracted specifically, through these interview and qualitative studies. And so I think, this gives us good information about re-examining how do we welcome fathers into the environment, and how well do we really help them process what's happening to them, what's happening to their family, and then really help them transition to their new reality. Specific paternal needs. There was an repeatedly expressed need to care for, the family, the child, and they saw, and the mother, and they saw that through work, through their financial contribution and that sort of thing. And it took them a while to transition to this sense of being a father and being a caregiver to their child. As I mentioned before, when they talked about these coping strategies, a lot of them really immersed themselves in the work, and they really felt, again, because they were in crisis, that the work was something that this I do good, this I can control, this validates who I perceive I am right now, because everything else is haywire and crazy and I'm really overwhelmed by this. And for us as clinicians, we need to take stock in that and examine what are the resources that we have specific to parents that are, experiencing this type of life-threatening situation, their child facing a life-threatening situation, not just in the NICU, in the PICU, in the CBI, in the ED. Do we have specific psychological resources for these individuals to help them process these emotions and really, acknowledge that this is happening to them and develop effective coping strategies instead of suppressing their experience? Because what we do know is that when parents, mothers or fathers, suppress this, it does come out and play post-discharge, and when there's even fewer resources available to the family unit. The self-representation thing I've also kind of gone back and forth about, but it did take these individuals, these gentlemen, a while before they really felt like a father. And what helped that realization of their new role and validation of their new role was the next theme that I'm going to mention, and that's the caregiving engagement bit. The studies that these folks reviewed looked a lot at paternal kangaroo care or paternal skin-to-skin care, and how that simple act that has such profound implications for the infant also has profound implications for role validation for the parent. They really see themselves now as that authentic caregiver, that person that's going to be protecting this child and really making a positive contribution to their overall health and well-being, which is exactly what kangaroo care or skin-to-skin care does. Being part of other types of caregiving activities also help these individuals transition to their new reality. And also kind of sprinkled throughout these themes was the specific need to have information sharing, to get accurate, authentic, caring information about their infant in the short term and in the long term. And, as I was reading this paper, I was thinking about my experiences at the bedside as a staff nurse. And, you meet different parents, different backgrounds, and you almost started to get a sense of, oh, this is the engineering dad, because they have a certain way that they approach the situation. They try and frame it by what they feel is comfortable terminology and comfortable metaphors. And I'm sure you guys have similar situations, physician parents, and other types of, technical parents have a different way of, with a background in the technical sciences or in the technical trades and stuff like that. So they're trying to take what is common to them, what their default setting is, and try and superimpose it onto something that is so foreign. And we need to figure out how to accurately assess where they're coming from so that we can meet them. We can meet them where they are and help bring them along to that journey. True partnership with not just the mother, but with the father. What these folks recommended is, kind of a lot of what I've already been saying is, providing father-tailored information is what the authors are recommending. Adopting a parenting, supportive, personal attitude. So what's your, how do you come across to the parents, And again, sometimes we're so thick in it, we're so in the middle of the forest, we can't see the trees, and we may be in a critical situation, we may be short-staffed, we may be fretting about something else, but we really need to be present to that parent when they are at that bedside. And how do we manage that? I'm not saying any of this is easy, but we need to really re-examine our existing paradigm so we can really optimize the service that we're providing to these families, because it's not only going to help them for the hospital stay, but this is going to help them for the rest of their lives. Other suggestions is sensitivity. Our own sensitivity with the parents, engaging the fathers in daily care, and also being mindful of cultural differences. One of the qualitative studies was done with Iranian parents in an Iranian NICU, and they talked about some of the cultural difficulties with the fathers, specifically fretting about missing days' work. Some of these fathers were farmers, and fretting about how that adds another burden of stress. And so how do we deal with that? I mean, sometimes we just say, oh, well, you've got to go do what you've got to do, and we'll always be here, not really understanding the complexity of that kind of a response. And so meeting up with your social service support folks, talking with psychology, talking with spiritual services, and making sure that you're trying to uncover what's the cultural diversity palette of individuals that you serve in your NICU, and how can you really best meet their needs. It is a journey for sure, and how can we help along that journey, help them transition to their new lived reality. In summary, they indicate that the findings from this systematic review highlight that fathers live a multidimensional, emotional, cognitive, and behaviorally charged experience. Mothers also experience this same type of multidimensional lived experience, but there's a different flavor to that, and so it's important for us to be mindful of that. I thought this was a really great paper. The reference list is fantastic. When I post the annotation, I'll give you the PubMed link, but just for a secret, if you guys are into researchgate.com, you could actually get the full paper. I can't share it with you because that's not cool, but I can give you the PubMed link of the abstract, and then you can try and hunt it down yourself or hook up with your library. I hope you enjoyed this little video review of this really fascinating article, and stay tuned for tomorrow's article. Have a wonderful day, and take care and care well.